Today is Valentine's Day, a day for sharing love. Now for some that may mean receiving flowers or chocolates, maybe breakfast in bed, and of course a carefully chosen card. For others though, it may be more poignant, still waiting for a special someone or remembering a particular loved one who's no longer here. And of course, some folk are quite content being single. The poets of a few centuries ago used to suggest that when you loved someone, the face of that person was somehow etched upon your eye, so that their image became a kind of watermark superimposed on everything else that you saw. Now, even though that's not how the human body works, let alone love, it's quite a sweet idea, because it suggests, in a way, that when we love, it causes us to see things differently. But there's more to love than checking our relationship status, because love isn't just about romance. It's about care and kindness and what you do for others, as well as how you feel about them. And that, too, can involve seeing things differently. Our first Bible reading today comes from the second book of Kings in the Hebrew Scriptures, the Old Testament. A foreign army has come to capture Israel's prophet Elisha, but as God's servant, Elisha knows about God's love, and this enables him to see the situation differently.
2 Kings chapter 6 verses 8a, then 13b to 23. The king of Syria was at war with Israel. When he was told that Elisha was in Dothan, he sent a large force there with horses and chariots. They reached the town at night and surrounded it. Early the next morning, Elisha's servant got up, went out of the house, and saw the Syrian troops with their horses and chariots surrounding the town. He went back to Elisha and exclaimed, "We're doomed, sir. What shall we do?" "Don't be afraid," Elisha answered. "We have more on our side than they have on theirs." Then he prayed, "O Lord, open his eyes and let him see." The Lord answered his prayer, and Elisha's servant looked up and saw the hillside covered with horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. When the Syrians attacked, Elisha prayed, "O Lord, strike these men blind." The Lord answered his prayer and struck them blind. Then Elisha went to them and said, "You are on the wrong road. This is not the town you are looking for. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you are after." And he led them to Samaria. As soon as they entered the city, Elisha prayed, "Open their eyes, Lord, and let them see." The Lord answered his prayer. He restored their sight, and they saw that they were inside Samaria. When the king of Israel saw the Syrians, he asked Elijah, "Shall I kill them, sir? Shall I kill them?" "No," he answered. "Not even soldiers you had captured in combat would you put to death. Give them something to eat and drink, and let them return to their king." So the king of Israel provided a great feast for them, and after they'd eaten and drunk, he sent them back to the king of Syria. From then on, the Syrians stopped raiding the land of Israel.
Elisha prays, vision is given, sight is withheld, and the way of love is such that even the usual ways of warfare in those days are turned on their head. Now, all of us from time to time find ourselves in situations that seem troubling or dangerous, and every day the news headlines remind us that the world is not as we would want it to be. But love teaches us never to lose hope. Instead, it helps us to see things differently and to know that God's grace is stronger than all that might threaten us. Good news indeed. Now, our second Bible reading today comes from the Gospel according to Mark chapter 9, and it again concerns seeing things differently.
Mark chapter 9, verses 2 to 9. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, and led them up a high mountain where they were alone. As they looked on, a change came over Jesus, and his clothes became shining white, whiter than anyone in the world could wash them. Then the 3 disciples saw Elijah and Moses talking with Jesus. Peter spoke up and said to Jesus, "Teacher, how good it is that we are here. We will make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He and the others were so frightened that he didn't know what to say. Then a cloud appeared and covered them with its shadow, and a voice came from the cloud. "This is my own dear son. Listen to him." They took a quick look around, but did not see anyone else. Only Jesus was with them. As they came down the mountain, Jesus ordered them, "Don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has risen from death."
Sometimes a picture can surprise you. Look at it in a different way, and you may see something you didn't notice at first. Sometimes what you see will depend upon your position, your perspective. Turn it around, and you'll find something different. Sometimes you need to squint or deliberately lose your focus in order to perceive a hidden meaning. Sometimes the thing that looks like it's there really isn't what's happening at all. But all of those examples are tricks, optical illusions. They may invite us to look at things differently, but fundamentally they show us something that's not true, or at best, only partly true. As for what Peter, James and John saw when they went up the mountain with Jesus, the Transfiguration, as it's known, with the appearance of Jesus changed in a moment of glory. Well, here too we're invited to see differently, though this time it's in a way that doesn't involve deceptions or tricks of the light. The point of this encounter is not to try to find some rational explanation for what the disciples saw, not to speculate about hallucinations or even altitude sickness as a reason to be able to set aside this strange vision. No, on the contrary, the point is that even if this revelation can't be fully explained, it is a revelation indeed, as they are enabled to see Jesus differently. What they see is the truth. Jesus standing with Moses and Elijah to signify that in him God's law and prophecy are fulfilled. Jesus aglow with a glory surpassing anything of mere human origin. Peter's first reaction is to want to capture the moment, to make it fixed and permanent. "Teacher, this is good. Stay where you are, you and Moses and Elijah, and we'll build a shelter round each of you." But that would make the scene something like those other pictures, the ones which only work because they are still images. If the figures in them were to move, well, you'd lose the effect. Whereas the truth that's revealed about Jesus here is a dynamic truth. He is glorified because he is indeed Emmanuel, God with us, not to be kept in one place, but on the move, walking among us, walking ahead of us indeed, and summoning us to follow. And as the disciples find out, the moment may pass, the vision may dissipate, but the truth of Jesus is undimmed. Because the revelation has come not only by what they've seen, but also by what they've heard. Just as in ancient days the voice of God had come to Moses and to Elijah from cloud and mountaintop, so now on the mountain Peter, James and John have heard a voice from the cloud saying, "This is my beloved Son. Now listen to him." As if to say, well, maybe not everyone will get to see what you've just seen, but for as long as the words of Jesus, his teaching and his summons are kept and shared, still by God's grace the truth of Jesus shall be made known. Still his glory shall be revealed. And so the revelation comes to us with the summons, listen to Jesus. And maybe, like the poets of centuries past, the idea is that as we listen, as we follow, the truth of Jesus is to become so ingrained within us that soon we won't just be seeing Jesus differently. Soon, in the light of his love, we'll be looking at everything in a new way. Because we're part of a world which God has loved so much that Jesus has come to save it. A world in which Jesus spoke of God's care for the seed and for the sparrow and for all that has life. And today, amid the world's COVID crisis, we're learning more about the world's underlying climate crisis and our contribution to it. So might God be calling us now to carefully re-evaluate our habits and our practices, to look differently at our lives. And we're part of a world in which Jesus consistently took the side of those marginalised, excluded or unjustly treated by others who casually wielded power over them. Today, churches in Britain are marking Racial Justice Sunday. And although equalities legislation has moved on massively in recent generations, still it's a sad and familiar truth that even today we don't have to look very far online, for example, to find examples of blatant racial abuse. But more than that, modern society is at last daring to grapple with painful questions about the extent of unconscious bias, inherited privilege, and the legacy of the past. So might God be calling us now to honestly re-interrogate our history and our present, to look differently at our neighbour's standing and at our own. This is my beloved Son, declares that voice from heaven. Listen to him. And to listen to Jesus is to open ourselves to a new way of living, a new way of being in the world, a way by which we ourselves are drawn into that same love in which Jesus is held, that same love with which Jesus blesses the world and begins to heal it. And when we love, we learn to see everything differently. For God's love transforms the world. Amen.